Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Canadian Bowler Podcast. I'm back. It's me, Luke Caldwell, and I'm here with somebody new today, Mr. Michael Patulli. How you doing?
Fantastic. How are you doing, Luke?
Oh, not so bad. It's crappy out, snowing, and I don't like it too much, but it's all right.
It's been a long time since I think me and you've hosted the show together. It's got to be months.
Have we ever hosted the show together?
I think we've done it at least once together.
I don't know. I didn't think Daryl would ever let us do it. I didn't think he had that much trust in us. But anyways, we're back. We're here. And yeah. All right, guys. Before we get started, we got to cover some basic stuff here. You got to remember, if you haven't already, the little subscribe button down the bottom, little red thing. Just click that for us. We really do appreciate it. And there's a little notification bell to the right of it. If you click that, you get notified anytime we go live or post any videos on the channel. And don't forget to hit that thumbs up button. Likes go a long way for us. We appreciate those. And if you're not available to listen to the whole podcast today, we're available on all major podcast platforms, including Spotify and Apple Podcast. Mike, you're pretty you like this topic.
Yeah, I've been following this topic pretty hard. So
let's talk British Isles, and you're gonna have to give me a rundown because I don't know what's going on here.
Yeah, so since the beginning of the year, there's been some pretty interesting developments with the British Isles, specifically with their junior international series that they have every year. So I guess beginning of the year, they announced that there was going to be some slight changes coming, and then pretty much got announced just over a week ago, and there was very significant changes made. So they used to have 24 players selected from each country, and it was cut down to 12, so cut in half. And then that was not well received by a vast majority of the membership. So a lot of the just common bowlers, and seems to be the common sentiment when you read around online, is that a lot of people don't agree with it. And then it doesn't look like there was very much consultation or any sort of just the people weren't really brought in on the conversation about cutting it down at all. So that was a bit of a shock for a lot of people, and a lot of people were not impressed by it. And then kind of add another layer of complexity to it. After they announced everything, all the different bowls associations started making statements about the announcement and how the voting process went. And then if you go and read the different statements, I think there's statements from the Welsh Association, the Irish Association, and the English Association, and they all kind of have different accounts of what exactly happened with the voting and who made what decisions. And it's interesting because you get the perspective that a couple of them didn't agree with the changes, but then a couple of them wanted the changes to occur. So it's quite the interesting scenario. If you do read the different websites, like there's, as I was saying, statements on pretty much any of the Bowls Association websites, and then there are some Facebook groups which actually have some interesting dialogue as well.
Yeah. So like, what do you think that really does to like the Bowls associations as a whole? Does that do you think that's going to limit like national team experience for some of the younger players or for less players? Is that the biggest issue with it, or am I kind of reading this wrong?
No, you're reading that correctly. That's a huge blow to anyone that kind of wants to break into that national team in any of those countries, because if you think about that, that's 24 players getting probably their first shots at an international experience each year. And if you're cutting that down to 12, that's probably going to, especially in countries like England, Scotland, Wales, Ireland, you're looking at probably the pretty elite crowd are going to be those top 12 type of people. So if you're, say, a younger player who's just starting to come on the scene, maybe 3-4 years into your career, and you're just starting out to come on the up and up, that's probably going to be your event to maybe get your first foot in the door and sort of move forward from that. And if you're cutting it down to 12, it could be pretty hard for the developmental type of player. So I see it as a big blow to bowls in the UK, because that's going to be hard for developing.
Did they straight up give a reason as to why they decided to limit the numbers, or is it just a rash decision?
The statement from Bowls England when they kind of announced it was that they're trying to balance having it being equal across genders, because there was a little bit of a difference in how the female and male version of the event went. There was, I think, more males were participating than females. I could be wrong with that. I'm just trying to remember off the top of my head here. And then it's trying to like sort of balance that. And then I think a lot of it's got to do with the money that's behind it, because 24 players, that's not a small amount of players. And I could see that probably be a pretty expensive or costly event.
Yeah,
so I could see that probably being the problem. But like if we were to put that into a Canadian perspective, like really that'd be like the North American Challenge if we chop that down in half. So 10 players or whatever it is per side, and you would chop that down to 5. I think me and you would have been hard pressed back when we were on the national team to get any sort of international experience if something like that happened.
Yeah, that's for sure. I mean, I guess really the question that really comes out of it is how important are those events to the players and the bowls associations as a whole? Like, for the Bowls Association, is it more important to save money, or is it more important to develop your program, I guess, is the big question there.
Yeah, no, it's probably that's the line that they're drawing almost, is that prioritizing other events and sort of the more elite bowling is something they're probably going after rather than the developmental route and sort of working on your grassroots and bringing players up. So
yeah,
it's an unfortunate trend that I think could continue, and I really hope it doesn't, but it's something that I could see happening down the line, even in other countries.
I think you and I could both, like you said, I think we could feel for those athletes, just because if that event wasn't there, there'd be a lot of players like you and I who may or may have never gotten a shot to play for their international team. So yeah, it's kind of a bit devastating for people like that.
Yeah, like hopefully we'll get a little more info as it goes along here. Like I've been talking with a few of the players I've played with that are in England and different countries in the UK there. So hopefully we'll have a little more info in future shows and be able to give a little more info down the line. But this is just sort of my scanning of the internet that we've got here to go off of.
Yeah. I guess we could move past that for the time being. If anybody has any questions, they want to throw them in the chat. We have our resident expert, Michael Petulli, here, so he'd be more than happy to attempt to answer those questions for you. But I guess moving forward, we can talk about the kickoff of the UBC that's finally come back after all of its cancellations and postponements. So that's pretty exciting.
Yeah, no, they released sort of had the update to the website with schedules and everything like that. So that was cool to see all the different updates they had on there. It's nice to look forward to that event being back, because really I think we saw the first iteration of it and then they've had to cancel it a couple times now. Mm-hmm. So it'll be great to see it go, and specifically with that North American content in there. Yeah,
we got Mr. Mike McNorton. He used to be a member of the Heritage Lawn Bowling Club. He's a Canadian national team member, and he currently resides in California somewhere. But friend of ours, Mike, good luck if you're listening. We wish you the best of luck in that. And if you want to, record some stuff for us while you're there, that'd be kind of cool. No pressure, though.
Yeah, when I was looking at the website, that was the one thing I kind of smiled at, was if you look at their listing for their team, it says Mike McNorton's from the USA. And Ryan Bester's from Canada. So apparently Mike lost his citizenship in his couple of years that he's lived in America there.
No kidding. That's actually kind of funny. I didn't realize that, but that is funny, especially that they have Ryan as a Canadian.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to watching the event, because I think on the last show we talked about the teams we're excited to see, and there's definitely some powerhouse teams in there. So it's going to be interesting to see how the lesser known teams sort of stack up against these teams, because I think it was the last UBC event wouldn't have been a team that I picked out of the bunch to win that ended up winning. So it'll be interesting how they all sort of stack up against each other down the line and see who ends up winning the games.
Who do you have as your favorite going into it, Mike?
Like last show we talked about it. I don't think you can really argue with, there's about 3 or 4 of the teams there. Like Warilla's team is quite good. And then you've also got like Steamers, or I guess what is the Ryan's team? I don't even know what it's called in this, but Ryan's team with Alex, Alex and Kevin there. Like you've got 3 or 4 really good teams that all could really honestly just run away with it, and I'm excited to watch it.
Yeah, definitely gonna be some good bowls. Everybody, if you haven't seen the UBC before, it's a slightly different take on the Lawn Bowls game. If you know anything about friends of the show, the Phoenix Bowls Championship, very similar format to that. So if you like that format, be sure to check that out. And I think it's all streamed on Facebook.
Yeah, no, the Phoenix is honestly, if you're enjoying it or you watch the UBC and you enjoy it, Phoenix is your best opportunity to try that out in Canada this year because they've got a full schedule of events coming out. So if you do like what you see when you're watching the UBC, definitely check out the Phoenix here and maybe put in an entry or two because that's exciting too in the summer here.
Perfect. Well, I guess we can move on to the interview. We do have an interview today with Natalie Chestney. Mike, do you want to give a little bit of some insight to our viewers about who that is?
Yeah, no, Natalie's a Bowls England player, Commonwealth Games gold medalist. I think it was 2010 in Delhi she won. So quite an accomplished bowler out of England there. She's been selected to Commonwealth Games in Birmingham coming up here. So she's quite an accomplished bowler out of England there. And it was her and Daryl, I think, are in this interview. So it's pre-recorded again. So not able to interact with her directly. But if you do have any questions, you can pop them in the chat. We can try and pass them along too.
Natalie, welcome to the show. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me, Daryl. It's great to be here.
So to kick off our interviews, we usually like to pass it over to you. For anybody that may not know who you are in the world of bowls, give us an idea of who Natalie is.
Well, that's a tough one. I'm not sure I'll be able to answer that in 2 minutes, but very complicated, of course. So yeah, my name's Natalie. I've been playing bowls since I was 9 years old, so I'm 32 now. Yeah, you tend to forget, don't you, as the age ticks over. So yeah, I've been playing bowls obviously for a huge part of my life, and I've been incredibly lucky to be able to travel with it and meet some amazing people along the way from all over the world. I've obviously been very, very fortunate to have played in a few Commonwealth Games as well, and World Championships, which has been an amazing experience. And yeah, it's a fantastic sport that I think is very undervalued, actually, certainly in this country and probably in others as well. Obviously seen as an older person sport. So and even now, 23 years on, I'm still a little bit embarrassed about playing bowls, which is really sad. I think less so than when I was a teenager, for sure. I was never told anybody. But yeah, it's a funny old sport, isn't it? You obviously know it well as well, and the listeners do too. But yeah, I for my sins, I love it.
Fill in a couple gaps here. We've got a bronze at the 2012 World Bowls Championships, 1 gold and 2 silver at Commonwealth Games, 5 gold British Isles Championships, and just recently, obviously, named to the 2022 Commonwealth Games team in Birmingham.
Yes. Yeah, it's weird seeing it in a list. You kind of, yeah, it's weird.
So you touched on it. You've been bowling since you were the age of 9, roughly 23 years in the sport.
Yeah.
Early on, I mean, a big victory came really early on in your career. I think it was the age of 21 when you won in Delhi, and it just, I don't want to say you hit the scene, but outside of England, probably everybody just said, "Holy smokes, who is this person?"
Oh, 100%. Yeah.
At what point did you early on realize that you were not only just really good at the sport, but that you could probably play with some of the best players in the world?
Yeah, it's kind of an interesting question because it's actually quite hard to pinpoint, I suppose. And I've always been, I guess, a pretty confident individual, not necessarily just in bowls, but just day to day. I kind of have self-belief and back myself to have a go at anything really. And yeah, obviously went to Delhi and nobody knew who I was, and I'll never ever forget actually that at the time Gail Gilks, who was the ladies team manager, had said that quite a well-known commentator in the sport had made a comment to her that England must be desperate if they'd picked me for the singles.
Wow.
And I was like, oh, that's a bit mean, isn't it? Yeah. But this is obviously before everything happened. And to be honest, I think I just felt so lucky to be there. It was my first major event, and outside of obviously playing in kind of British Isles tournaments at home. And I honestly just thought, if I can get through the group stages, like, that is my goal. That's going to be amazing, just not to embarrass myself, on the world stage, really. That obviously happened, and I was like, oh, thank God, phew, it's, I've not been embarrassing. And then I kind of got into the quarterfinals and played Wales and obviously won that one. And then I kind of think, I was like, oh, this is going quite well, actually. But it was just so unexpected. And then I played CT from Malaysia, who obviously I think had won the past 2 gold medals in the singles in the semi-final. And, I think I was just kind of in this just amazing kind of headspace of, let's see what happens, give it my best. And whatever happens, I've really enjoyed it, and it's been an incredible experience. And I had nothing to lose, to be honest, because it was my first games. No one expected anything. And I think when I, managed to kind of scrape through that game somehow, I think then I was like, crap, like, I've got a medal, whatever happens in the final, like, I've got a medal, which, even to this day, like, I still kind of, I get a bit emotional about it, I think, because it was just such an incredible time. And I had, quite a few family members that had been really lucky that they'd kind of been able to come out and support me. And I know there's a photo, of me like hugging my like mum and dad and brother, and a couple of my cousins and an auntie made out there as well. So it was just such a whirlwind. And I was on cloud 9 for quite a long time after that. But I think really it's probably that kind of semi-final game where I honestly thought, like, I deserve to be here. I don't think I'd really felt like that before then, because I just felt like I'd, got a bit lucky maybe to get there, and had a few good games. And then I was like, oh God, yeah, this is real. I need to start putting my finger out a bit. Yeah.
Speaking about Delhi and then subsequently after that, Glasgow, you win a gold in Delhi, you have 2 silver in Glasgow, and just by the narrowest of margins in those games. During my research, I found a paper that you wrote from 2012, which outlined pretty much all the stuff that you did, and it was incredible to read all the preparation, the stuff that went into it, where you played, how you played, trying to get used to not only Delhi but then Glasgow. What was your preparation like leading into those 2 games?
So I think in 2010 for Delhi, I would probably be correct in saying that I think we probably had the biggest budget like we've ever had, or even since have had, for a Commonwealth Games. So, the reality is that money wins medals. If you've got good people, good natural ability, then, the reality is if you've got money to kind of prepare them as best as possible and have lots of high level competition, training around the world, then that that's the best opportunity you can obviously ever get. So we were really lucky in Delhi to have that. And we went over to Delhi before the games and had a tournament there and some training with a few other teams. We went to the Australian Open. We went out to Spain for an event and had some competition there. And we had quite a lot of stuff obviously at home as well. And I think it was just the exposure to regular high level competition, and you can't replicate that. You can't replicate that when you're just playing against yourselves, or you're playing against other players in your country or your area. You can't get yourself into that headspace. So I think it's very difficult unless you're actually in that situation. So yeah, for Delhi for sure, we were on brand new greens. No one had ever played on them. They'd literally just been built. So it's not like those greens were like anything else anyone had really ever played on and probably ever have since. so yeah, we were just very fortunate, I think, to have that, to have that budget to kind of back up our extensive training program. And I was in university at the time, and I deferred my last year of university to focus on the games. That meant that obviously I had no problem traipsing around the world, playing bowls whenever I needed to. And I did some traveling in Australia. I spent a few months there before the Aussie Open, and obviously got acclimatized to the greens a bit. So yeah, it was a once in a lifetime opportunity to kind of have all of that preparation, and in a time in my life where I had no other commitments. So yeah, I went back to university, obviously the year after, to finish my degree. But yeah, I mean, I'd never be able to do that again. If we got that sort of budget, still being amateur players, there's no way that I'd be able to take 10 weeks off work, to fly around the world and play. But obviously at that time it was possible. And then, the reality is Glasgow, we had significantly less money, but we're on our home greens. I know it wasn't obviously in England, but the greens obviously in Scotland are, identical. So we were able to play on those in some test events. And to be honest, it was just as good practice to obviously play on the greens at home as well. So yeah, I think that, tactically, obviously we could play the same game, and we got to spend quite a lot of time together as a team as well prior to those games. And I think Glasgow was, one of the only games, I don't know if it's the only, but we all medalled in Glasgow, which I'm not sure has kind of ever happened before, and certainly not since. So, it just goes to show, I think, what you have as a home advantage, really.
So fast forward to today, and you're getting ready to not only come out of a pandemic situation where people were locked down and not a lot was going on, but
Yeah.
You're married, you have a beautiful daughter, you're working. What's the preparation like going into the 2022 games?
I mean, obviously, we've not perhaps had as long to prepare as I think, John McGuinness, our high performance manager, perhaps would have planned. Obviously, 2 years ago, there was no bowls at all. Excuse me. So we all had a season off, which actually, looking back in hindsight, actually, Jamie and I were both very fortunate. We just had Eliza, and actually we got to spend so much more time with her than we ever would have done if it hadn't have been for the pandemic. And I don't think either of us feel that not bowling that summer was a negative, to be honest. And we very much enjoyed the break. But I think everybody kind of came back to bowls last year with a sort of renewed sense of desire and will to win, and looking forward to kind of being out in the fresh air again, and being competitive. I think you obviously, you realize what you miss, don't you, when especially the social side is taken away, because I think it's human nature, very base level, we all have a desire to socialize and be around other people, and bowls for a lot of players is how we socialize. And I've got some great friends, and people that I went from seeing kind of 2 or 3 times a week in the summer to not seeing for months. So yeah, it was obviously very odd, but I think we had some, we had quite a lot of training camps last summer with the squad, which then was a squad of 8, obviously, before it was cut down to the final team of 5. And this year we've actually got a team building weekend next weekend in London, which is not bowls related. So that's just going to be great to spend some time together and have a bit of fun, hopefully. And then I think in May, kind of kicks off our sort of official playing program, and I think pretty much every other weekend we've got training camps, whether it be sort of against regional teams, or we've got some Tri-Nations events. I know Australia are coming over in May, and we've got something in June, I think, with the home nations as well. So it's going to be pretty busy. I'm trying not to think about it too much, but obviously having a daughter, neither of Jamie or I can just sort of pop off for the weekend. We obviously have to make plans, but it's going to be good. And I think, we're really looking forward to getting back out on the greens and playing at that high level again, to be honest.
You mentioned something that I also feel as well. When everything kind of came to a halt and bowls was put aside, I finally realized just how much time was being put into bowling,
Yeah.
weekends, whatever.
Yeah.
It was really nice to have the break.
Yeah.
When you finally picked up a bowl again and thought about playing, did you feel like renewed or just energized to actually just get right back out there and compete again?
In all honesty, I would be lying if I said I could be bothered before I played. You know, I honestly thought, do I really want this? Yeah, exactly like you. You know, do I want to give up all my weekends and my evenings and you know, working during the week? You know, weekends are the time that you get as a family. And you know, I'd obviously had we did both had such a lovely time having Eliza and getting all that time with her. And you know, I was like, you know, I don't know. There was a lot of groaning in our house, I think. You know, do we really want to do it? But honestly, I remember vividly, we had a team sort of training camp in Oxford really early in the season last year. And I just loved it, you know, getting back out there. And I remember saying to Jamie afterwards, like, that has made me realise how much I still want it. And it wasn't really until I actually got back on the green and kind of got into that competitive mindset again that I realised how much I'd missed it. Yeah.
Perfect answer. Yeah. So what were your feelings about actually being selected to the Commonwealth Games on home soil?
Oh, I mean, if obviously our sort of team selection was delayed a bit, and you know, we were all kind of waiting with bated breath for what felt like years, you know, to find out. Obviously, it wasn't, but you know, to find out whether or not we'd been selected. And I think, you know, when we eventually found out, it was just, you know, you kind of feel relief, you know, in the first place that, you know, that wait is over, because it's such an emotional roller coaster when you're going through a selection process, because, you know, you give up so much time and mentally it's really tough because you're thinking, it's on your mind a lot, you know, and as much as you try and kind of get on with other things and not think about it, you just can't really help it. And I think particularly for Jamie and I, where obviously there was a chance that we were both going to be selected, you know, what impact that has on our family life as well is very unique. And as much as we don't want to be treated differently, like, we are in a very different situation from everyone else in the squad, you know, in terms of our ability just to be able to pick up and go. So, you know, it's obviously a huge thing for our family to both be selected. So it was amazing. And I think it's such a great opportunity to have a games, you know, at Leamington Spa, where, you know, we're all really familiar with, and you know, we'll be able to have Eliza there with us and all our family. You know, they'll hopefully all be able to be there, and it's potentially a once in a lifetime opportunity. You know, to play on our own greens, you know, at a time in our bowling careers where, you know, we're still performing at a decent level and feel confident that, you know, we can put everything into it and yeah, try and aim high, I suppose.
Question about the team. There's 18 members and 7 are from Devon. Is there something about Devon that people don't know about bowls?
I mean, we've been asked this a lot, and I don't think I've really quite nailed the perfect answer yet. But I mean, we've got, there's obviously, you know, Jamie was from Norfolk originally, so he very much is still a Norfolk boy, and you know, Norfolk till he dies. He's not a Devon boy. And then Louis was from Somerset originally, but moved down here with his wife Kelly, with his parents actually. They moved down here. So, but yeah, I mean, obviously there's, you know, myself and Sam and Soph, and then Alison in the VI team as well. So yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think we always had, when we were younger, and perhaps not so much anymore, which is really sad, but we had kind of a great pathway when we first started bowling. So Sam and I pretty much started at the same time. I think he was maybe a bit before me, but he's been playing for, you know, well over 20 years as well. And my brother played, who was the same age as Sophie. And we've all grown up together, and we had an amazing junior section at our local indoor green when we first started, and were exposed to a lot of coaching and a lot of opportunities from quite a young age. At one point I think there was something like 65 juniors that used to go every Saturday morning. So I think that was massive, and actually a lot of the players in the England team and in the county team for Devon actually were part of that kind of junior program. So yeah, it's hard to tell. It really is. But I think we've got a lot of greens. We've got a lot of bowlers. We always have really high levels of entries for our competitions. So in order to be successful and get recognised, you have to be beating really competent players at a local level. So I think it's just meant that we've obviously had to play very well to be recognised from the beginning, to be honest.
Fair. So going back to the Com Games in 2010 and 2014, England had tremendous success. 2018 down in Australia was a bit of a down year. What's the expectation for England this year? Is it obviously gold is the goal, the standard. That's what you want to go for. But is the confidence high that England's going to come out and have a bounce back year?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, the reality is that we never get, whenever we've played, in Southern Hemisphere countries, we've never had enough time to really prepare. And actually, the surfaces are so different. And I think tactically, what shots you can play and how you can play them is very different to what we're used to at home. So it's just a very different game. And, obviously Bowls England sort of select the teams for the Commonwealth Games, from players who play on greens they're very good at playing at greens that are 12 seconds, whereas we go over to Australia and it might be 18-second greens, which, are vastly different. And it's not even like indoors really. So it's not like you could suddenly go and pick all the best indoor players and do really well either. It's really tricky, but I think, we've got such a strong squad this year. We've got, so many experienced players that have obviously, I think pretty much everyone bar Nicky has obviously played at games before, and obviously he's a born winner. Obviously his success at Potters in the World Championships over the years has proven that. And I think whilst it's his first games, no one's going to doubt that if you get him into the important games, he's going to deliver. So.
I've actually we've talked to some players from Australia as well, and it almost mirrors exactly what you said. When they say they go to the Northern Hemisphere, it's a struggle as well, because their greens are not like that. They don't know how to play. The shot selection is very different. So it's not surprising that it's the opposite for you guys as well.
No, well, it's good to hear it from them. They are human,
Very true. One surprise that came up during, I guess, pre-selection into the selection that'll be missed from the women's side is Ellen Faulkner. She retired, took a position down in Australia, and is down there. We've seen a number of fairly high-profile bowlers either take new positions or retire, like Karen Murphy and Joe Edwards, just to name a few. What has the impact of Ellen not being on the team had for you guys? I
mean, Ellen and Chris are great friends of ours, and I think this move has been something they've been hoping to they'd hoped to do for a number of years. And from a personal level, we obviously miss them terribly because they're great friends, but we're still in touch, and it was too good an opportunity for them to pass up. And it wasn't a Bowls decision, it was a lifestyle decision, and obviously they both got great jobs there, and they'll do amazingly well, and we're very jealous of them sunning themselves now whilst we've had Storm Eunice over here, and roofs are blowing off. But I think from a Bowls perspective, Ellen's been an integral part of high performance Bowls England since 2002, which was obviously her first Commonwealth Games, and she's clearly one of the most successful female bowlers we've ever had in this country, and she's just such a steady influence. You can rely on her. She's she's just a lovely person, and you know, an amazing friend and a great bowler. She's very loyal. You know that you can rely on her under tough situations. She never loses her head, and you know, she's so experienced. So from that perspective, it was a huge loss for the team. But I think what it has allowed for is, you know, for someone else to be, you know, involved in the selection process, and you know, and be given an opportunity that perhaps wouldn't have. And actually, I think, you know, our team is not. I don't think our team is necessarily worse off for it in terms of what our performance will be on the green, because we've got enough time to obviously prepare as a unit now. But you know, at the time, obviously, you know, you would have had her on the team sheet, you know, easily, and I think it just you know, it was just a bit of a shock for everybody that obviously she wasn't able to be involved. But you know, I think we've got so much experience in our team. I mean, obviously Amy has come along that journey with Ellen, and has had obviously a couple of games break, but that was personal choice. She certainly would have been selected, I'm sure, if she'd made herself available. Obviously myself, Sian and Jamie Lee have played in the game since 2010, and Soph's been involved since Glasgow. So, you know, it's not like we've suddenly got someone who's very inexperienced, you know, in the squad. We're obviously very fortunate to have real strength and depth in our squad. So yeah, it was obviously a very sad moment for us all, but I think you know, it's given us opportunities to kind of look at what comes next, and what we do moving forward as a team.
Awesome. When I was researching for this interview, looking at the Bowls England national titles, and in multiple disciplines, your name is peppered through everything, either winning it or runner-up. How difficult is it to not only make the England nationals, but hit the final so many times?
It takes a lot of commitment, I think, because, you know, you're playing, we're in a big county, so, you know, often even to get out of Devon, you know, the county that we live in, we might be playing, you know, 4 or 5 games to get out of our section, and then you have like another 3 or 4 to get out of the county, and that's before you know, even get to the national final. So, but I think that always sets us up very well. You know, if we can actually get out of our county, then, you know, it sometimes isn't actually any harder at the finals, because we've played some, you know, incredible players along the way to get there. You know, just in our club, we've got, you know, multiple England international players. So yeah, sometimes just, you know, I'm looking at the draws for this summer, you know, some of my first rounds are against people that I play in the England team with. So you know, that certainly doesn't make it any easier. But you know, we're very fortunate at our club, Kings in Torquay, to have, you know, some really amazing players, which means that obviously in the team events we're really strong. And you know, we've obviously been lucky enough to be able to qualify, you know, qualify for competitions, and manage to sneak a few titles as well. But it's, you know, you can't take any of these things for granted, and I think particularly in outdoor bowls, you know, quite often you're beaten by the green, aren't you? So, you know, there's never a sort of well, I mean, sometimes there might be an on paper winner, but it quite often doesn't go like that. And I think you know, often you are playing against the green as much as you are the opposition. So, which sometimes can obviously lead to results that perhaps weren't expected. So, you know, every time you are able to win one of those titles, you just, thank the Lord that you managed to find it on that day, really.
So, both you and your husband Jamie are highly decorated. Just recently, Jamie took down another World Bowls Tour title. One place that on the national listing that I didn't see your name was the mixed pairs. Do you and Jamie ever play together?
So yes, we have done. So once, yes. The first, I think it was probably the first year Jamie moved down to Devon, actually, and we thought it'd be a lovely idea, you know, to play in the mixed competitions together. And I think, if I'm correct in thinking, we did get to the quarterfinals, and really we valued our marriage more than the title. So we decided that whilst it, you know, was a lovely idea. The reality of it perhaps wasn't for us. Yeah. So bravo to any married couples that do play, because
That's a brilliant answer.
It's not for us.
Yeah. I'm not surprised by that. A lot of the married couples that I see play, either it's a struggle or they're really, really good together. There's really no middle ground sometimes. So.
No. We I think you're just too honest with each other. There's so many things that you would never ever say to someone you play with normally, or a friend that you play with, that you definitely would say to your partner. And it was unpleasant. There was many a silent car journey on the way home after a game.
Nice. So switching gears, I noticed some videos that you had online advocating for more women in sport and more women in lawn bowls. Lots of previous interviews trying to break the stereotype of the old person game versus young people being in the sport. So you seem to be really over your career trying to push the fact that bowls is for everybody. It's inclusive, it's accessible.
Yeah.
Don't just think of it as older people dressed in white having a stroll out on the green. What do you personally feel needs to happen to raise the profile of bowls and get more, I won't say necessarily just younger people, but just more people in general involved in the sport?
I think so many on so many occasions, if you're involved in a sort of kind of open day down at your local club, or you're advertising the sport, that as soon as you get people on the green actually giving it a go. I've never ever in my life of getting new people on the green ever heard anyone say that was really rubbish after they've had a go. It's always the total opposite, like, oh god, that's so much more fun than I thought, or so much harder than I thought it would be. And so I think if we can find a way just to get people on the green, really, I think everything else after that kind of should be fairly easy, because we all know, we're all testament to that once you start playing, you're absolutely hooked. And 23 years later, I'm still playing every day of the week in the summer. But I think it's just breaking down that kind of stereotype, perhaps, that it's a slow, boring game. And that is going to take time, because the reality is the majority of people that play bowls around the world are older people. It's a sport that younger people, it is a younger person's sport, but it's a sport that older people can play and are able to, physically, perhaps they're not able to pursue the sports that they used to competitively when they were younger. So they turn to bowls because they still are competitive, but not able to play hockey anymore, or basketball, whatever, it might be, football. And actually, we've got thousands of bowls greens in our country, and you can bet a lot of money that you go down to your local bowls green and there will be someone playing in brown shoes and full white gear and a tie. And it is slowly changing. And I think it's changing for the better with colourful uniforms, and I think it has to start at the grassroots level, from the perception side of things, and also I think there's a lot of onus on the national governing bodies to create marketing campaigns which do break those barriers down, really. It very much is a kind of white middle class sport, and actually you do very rarely see any sort of ethnic minorities playing. It often is just white people, and I think it's such a shame, because actually it is such an amazing sport that can bring so many communities together, and it's so irrelevant where you're from, what religion you are, what your background is. Sport does bring people together, and that's not just bowls. I think it goes across the board, and I just think for so long now there's been wasted opportunities, really, with our game. And the Commonwealth Games is really the only time every 4 years that anyone else who doesn't play bowls actually gives a crap about our sport. So we really do have to make the most of the opportunity when it comes around. We don't get this sort of multi-sport platform opportunity very often, and I just think it has been wasted in the past, certainly in Great Britain. and hopefully being a home games now, we've got the opportunity to really promote the sport to non-bowlers. We know bowlers will be watching the Commonwealth of games, but what we want is people that perhaps have bought tickets to see something else, maybe coming in and thinking, oh, what's this? This looks really good. And you've got people from all different age groups in some funky kit, and it's loud and it looks exciting. And I think that's that's a side of bowls that we want people to see. We don't want them to see the the dowdy older people in their whites, very sedate, in the local village green, moaning that they can't bend down. So yeah, I think there's no easy answer. I think has to be a long game, and I think really it has to start with people that are in high performance teams or international teams, because we have an opportunity and a voice to be heard, to promote the sport. And I think we've all got so much out of it. You do have to give back. The reason I'm sat here today is because people volunteered at my local indoor green and taught me how to play. And I'm totally indebted to Peter Bright, his name was, and I know that I'm indebted to him because he taught me what I know now, and was the foundation to my bowls career. So we've all of us have had support in some way or another over the years from volunteers in our sport. And what little spare time we do have in our busy personal lives, I think it's important we try to give back, really.
Well said. Very well said. For those that are looking up to you as a role model, probably a lot of female bowlers in England as well, trying to make the national team, looking at your success and saying, I really want to do that. I want to travel. I want to compete at the Commonwealth Games. What kind of advice would you give to them?
I think where possible, you have to surround yourself with people that are better than you. I was really lucky early on in my career at the indoor green we played at, because that's where I started. There was a lady called Cheryl Northall, and she'd won the World Champion of Champions, and had played for England for a number of years, and she kind of took me under her wing and played in a league with her. And I used to polish everyone's bowls every end and line them up really neatly, because that's the sort of thing I was into when I was 10. And I was just so lucky to be surrounded by people that were just far superior to me on the bowls green, and I learned so much from them. I think I actually manage our under 31 junior team now. We've got, we've kind of got half our girls in our squad that are super competitive and already competing at a kind of county national level, and then you've got the other half of girls where there's so little pathway for them, and actually they don't have that desire. They don't have the desire to win. They're not entering in the junior competitions. They're not trying to play with people that are better than them and putting themselves in those positions where they're going to get better. And I think from my experience, from how I kind of learned when I was younger, I wanted to play against people, with people that were better than me, because I wanted to get better myself. I had that desire to learn and then desire to win. And the reality is, I think if you don't have that, it's not something you can teach. But if you are really competitive and really keen to get better, then it does involve sacrifice. And I think my brother and I were very lucky. We had incredibly supportive parents who drove thousands of miles every year for us, and getting up early on weekends and taking us to matches. And I think it's very hard for young people to be able to play any sport really at a decent level unless you've got that support at home. But if you do have that support, and you're looking at England players, and it's probably not me, other women in our team, you have to, if you want to be like that, then you've got to surround yourself with people that are really good players that you can learn from. And you have to be open to learning as well. I think a lot of people don't perhaps take constructive criticism very well. It has to obviously be communicated in the right way and come from someone you respect. But again, you just have to surround yourself with people you do respect and want to learn from, really.
I think you made an excellent point there about being open to learn. As a coach myself, there are times where people come to you and say, I want to be able to draw better, I want to learn or fix my delivery or whatever it is, but they really don't want to hear anything. So as much as they say they want to learn, they're not going to learn because they're just not open to it. So that's a really good point.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
You touched on another point, that being family. We hear that a lot in our interviews, especially of players that are really high up. I see it in other sports as well, where behind every really, really good player growing up, there's parents that drive, take time out, take them to practice, take them to tournaments, all that kind of stuff. Now that you've got a family of your own, how important is family to your overall career?
Oh, I mean, there's absolutely no doubt in Jamie or I's mind that without the support of our families, that we would both be able to compete. Like it's not physically possible. We're very, very fortunate in that respect. And my parents actually live sort of 20 minutes away from us, and we're absolutely indebted to their kind of childcare support. To be able to play at this level. And Jamie's family is still up in Norfolk, so they're sort of 5-hour drive away. And I know that they're so keen to help, but obviously the distance makes it really tricky. But when we do compete in Leamington, they'll all be there. So they'll all be getting their fair share of Eliza toddler mayhem when we're playing in Leamington. But in terms of we've got, as I said, sort of every other weekend we're going to be playing in something or other for the games, and then obviously alongside that we've got all of our county and national competitions to try and fit in around that as well. So it's it is going to be a challenge. And I've kind of tried to avoid looking at my diary for the summer for as long as possible, because I know it's going to be really hideous. But I think we're creeping into March now, and I need to start sort of sorting things out really.
Good point. So my final question for you, knowing that the 2022 games are the big ticket item on your calendar to say, here's where I want to be. I want to get gold, achieving for the best. Fast forward past that, what are your goals for the future in your bowls career? Do you have anything that you want to do?
That's a really interesting question. I think now we've got Eliza, I think that has obviously, as it does with any parent, I think really changed our perspective on how we spend our time really. And I think we've given up a huge amount of time last summer, and will do this summer, to both have this opportunity to play. So I think for sure something's going to have to give. After this summer, I don't think it's going to be possible for us to kind of both maintain this level of playing. So that's just the reality of the situation. And I think she's 2 now, and she's so much fun to be around. And I know next summer's going to be different again. And we obviously both work as well, so the kind of thought that we could put ourselves and her and our families through this again is really tough. I don't think it's doable. It's such a huge ask for our parents to have her and look after her on our behalf, really, as much as they will be this year. So I think a break will probably be needed after this summer. And then what comes after that, who knows, really. We're both incredibly competitive people, and I don't think it's possible for us not to play bowls, because we both really love it, and for both of us it's a huge part of our social lives as well. So it's very important. But honestly, I don't know. I think the Commonwealth Games obviously is the pinnacle of our sport, so that's what we aim to, and obviously been fortunate enough to for this to be not the first games that I've played in. I got a bronze in the World Championships in Adelaide, and I think I'd love to do better in the World Championships. That one's kind of been a bit of a bugbear for me, really. That I've not been able to do better than that. But I think we'll just have to wait to see what happens. Every year is a new year, and who knows what's around the corner.
So I lied. Talking about Liza, I think I saw pictures of her out on the green rolling some bowls. Is there a
Yes.
future lawn bowler in your family?
If we have anything to do with it, absolutely not. No. She is going to be playing a money sport for sure. I think bowls is literally the last option. So we're thinking, neither of us are particularly tall. So netball's probably out, to be honest, because neither of us are sort of 6 foot or even close. So I have zero hand-eye coordination, but somehow managed to play bowls at a decent level, whereas Jamie actually is fairly sort of naturally good at most sports. So we sort of thought tennis, but that's unlikely. So we're sort of gunning for hockey because that is a paid sport in this country. Jamie was half decent at football, I think, when he was younger, so that there's possibilities there. But yeah, I mean, obviously we all support her in whatever sport she wants to do, but we're hoping for nice nursing homes, to be honest. So I think hopefully she can play something that she makes a bit of money at. But really, you just want your kids to be happy and enjoy themselves, don't you? So no doubt, she will be spending some time around the bowl screens during her childhood. So it may well put her off completely. Who knows?
That's awesome. So Natalie, thank you so much for your time. This has been an absolute pleasure. You've been a wonderful guest. Obviously, we've seen your career for some time, seen you almost grow up in the sport, so to speak. And on behalf of the Canadian Bowler and all the viewers, just want to wish you all the best for 2022 and the best of luck at the Com Games as well.
Thank you so much, Daryl. It's honestly been a pleasure, and hopefully, I'll be able to have an interview after the games that I've, holding a nice shiny medal. But we will try our best, and thanks so much again for having me. It's been great.
Awesome. Thank you very much.
Oh, we're back. I guess my thoughts will be lost forever. Thanks, Daryl and Natalie, for that wonderful interview. That was great. It was pretty fun listening to some war stories and some of her history and all the things she's looking forward to in her bowls career coming up. Not too much left to talk about. I did just want to say quick shout out to Dom in the chat there, writer for the is it Inside Bowls magazine? Is that who he writes for, Mike?
I believe so, yeah.
Yes, quick shout out to Dom. But we did want to talk about the announcement of the World Indoor Bowls Championship. Is that the correct name?
Yeah, I guess that's what it would be. So they finally had a news release about it yesterday there. So that was good to see that there's actually an announcement, because I think that event's just a couple weeks away now. So it actually was exciting that that's going to be happening.
I hope the players found out before we did, because that's not a whole lot of time to decide you're going to fly across the world.
And if you look at the information, there's quite a few teams in it too. Like a lot of countries that aren't traditionally playing in the World Bowls Indoor Championships. So it's going to be interesting to see all these different nations getting their shot on the world stage. I think there was Hungary, Jamaica, some countries that you definitely don't traditionally see giving their go.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but would this be the first World Indoor Bowls Championship since the merger of World Bowls and the World Indoor Bowls Council? Or am I blowing smoke here? Because that could be why there's more teams.
Yeah, can honestly tell you. I don't know if it was the first one since the merger, but it might be the first or second. I think the last one was
I know the youth was World Indoor Bowls and World Bowls, I believe, but I don't know if there's been a major.
Yeah.
Anyways, I guess we could move on. Oh,
Dom's correcting you in the chat. It's not World Indoor Bowls Champ, because that was the previous name. WIBC was the previous
okay,
entity.
I take it all back then.
But yeah,
never mind.
Wanted to just highlight the Canadians in the field. Good luck to Irene and Bobby Jean. It's crazy to think that they would have won our 2019 indoor championship, whatever it was, at the end of 2019 there, and they're now finally getting to compete. So good luck to them and anyone competing. We'll definitely have the results, and we'll pass it along as it happens.
Perfect. Yeah, I don't think we have too much to cover today. That was a good interview there. We talked about the UBC, the British Isles, and a few things when we started off the show today. So I think we're going to call it there. Thanks, Mike, for coming in and hanging out with me today. Thanks again, Daryl, for that interview. If you guys missed any of the show today and you're interested in watching, don't forget that we're available on all major podcast platforms, including Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Stitcher. Hit that follow button down below just so you get any notifications whenever we go live. We got some big things coming in the works. I promise it when I say it this time. And I guess until next time, guys, I hope all your shots are touchers.